What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Saturdays in the SEC, episode 142. Hope everyone had a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year. We've been through two rounds so far, the college football playoff, getting ready for the semifinal matchups this week with Texas and Ohio State and Penn State, Notre Dame. So we obviously busy holiday schedule, just now getting the time to sit down and recap the first two rounds of the playoffs. Been Obviously had some blowouts so far, which I think people expected. I don't think that was unexpected with some of the teams that were in the field, and then had I guess you could say a couple moderate surprises so far as well. But really, just want to get your thoughts so far on these first two rounds. Kind of anything that surprised you, some of the performances, and then maybe some things that you didn't expect, and just the overall product of the playoffs so far. What are your views through the first two rounds?
I mean, it's been entertaining, and some of them have been, blowouts, not entertaining, and so some people are upset about that. But also, I mean, we're talking about it. It's got people on, Twitter talking about it, getting mad about it. I've been on the internet getting mad about it at times. So you know what I'm saying? Like it's working for them. But man, the SMU game, that's what I was most disappointed in. I didn't think that SMU would win or beat Penn State, but I definitely thought they would give them a better game than they did. So that was disappointing to see. I feel like the moment got to them. I mean, turned the ball over early twice, and then had another late turnover, interceptions. And a pick six early. I mean, pretty much sealed the deal after that. They really couldn't. SMU couldn't stop Penn State. So that was disappointing to see. Just because I thought SMU would perform a little bit better. I didn't think they would win. I just thought they would perform a little bit better. And then Tennessee, I was way wrong about Tennessee. I mean, they absolutely got their doors blown off. They were not ready. They were definitely not the better team. They couldn't contain or couldn't set the edge. Couldn't contain couldn't move the ball at all. They were all over Nico. Ohio State was, I mean, throwing it up like it was a video game down the field. Just, I feel like every ball they threw was 20 plus yards, just like just big chunk play after big chunk play, and my guys were wide open. I mean, it was probably the worst beatdown of the playoffs so far, honestly. I mean, you look at Jeremiah Smith, the dude's a freshman, and he went over 100 yards in this game, had two touchdowns, made a tremendous catch in double or triple coverage. But I mean, that was also really shocking to me. I just thought Tennessee would put up a better game. I picked Tennessee to win. I really did on the pod. I picked them to cover for sure, and they got their doors blown off. So that was also disappointing to see. And then Clemson, Texas was a pretty good game. Texas really pretty much handled business from snap one. And then Penn State, Boise State. I well, let's hear about your first round. Let's hear your opinions on the first round before we get into any more.
Yeah,
Second
I
round.
mean, like you said, I thought SMU would put up a little bit better fight. I mean, obviously on the road at Penn State's tough, but I did think that one would be a little more competitive at least. I feel like Notre Dame, Indiana went about like I thought. I mean, the score was a little closer than it indicated, really, with a late score by Indiana. But yeah, I think the big surprise being Ohio State, Tennessee, and I think Ohio State they were kind of like one of the biggest wild cards coming into this playoff because it's all season, even when they were winning you could just tell like they were never really clicking like everyone expected, like knowing the talent that they have on the roster. Um, that Michigan game continues to be so mind blowing to me, like how they dropped that game, especially the way they're playing now. Like I mean, which I guess the layoff did them really well. I mean, the way they played through these first two rounds, but it's like
Yeah.
if that team's at their best, they're the best team in the field, and I think they've proven that so far. I mean, you've gotten the best version of them in this playoff, and um, But going into the playoff, you knew how talented they were, but you just hadn't really gotten that version yet this year. Like I said, even being 10-2, they just weren't really clicking at the level that everybody knew that they were capable of doing. And now that they're doing that, they're going to be really tough to beat. But yeah, them beating Tennessee in that fashion, I definitely didn't expect that. I mean, they were miles better that night. It was a super impressive performance. Um, and like you said, I think Texas Clemson went about like I thought. I mean, I figured it would be a pretty competitive game, but just thought Texas, especially at home, was the better roster, the better team, and I think that kind of ended up playing out that way. But yeah, definitely Ohio State Tennessee was the biggest surprise for me, and when I saw that result, I was like, man, like Ohio State, they may have really figured it out, and
Yeah.
if they can keep playing at that level or even close to it, um, I I feel pretty good about them going forward here the next 2 rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be tough to beat. And obviously, Notre Dame, Indiana, scoreboard doesn't show just how much of a butt whooping that game was. Final was 27-17, but Notre Dame had control the entire game. There was nothing Indiana could do. But I do want to, and another game that was just like that is Penn State, Boise State. 31-14, yes, and Penn State definitely handled the game, and they had the game in wraps the whole time. But Boise State put up a much better fight than what the scoreboard would show. And you look at the box score, it was a much tougher game than what it shows. Uh, but I thought that Boise State performed extremely well. It took G&T a little bit to get going, and they were kind of all over him all night. But he still made several really, really impressive runs, yards after contact. I mean, bouncing off tacklers. They made it interesting there for a little bit, but I thought that Boise State outperformed what a lot of people expected them to do, to be honest. Um, but the game that in the second half or the second round, excuse me, that I was most disappointed in was Georgia and Notre Dame, man. Uh, I know that Georgia was playing with a backup quarterback. Completely okay with that because he looked just fine. Absolutely disappointed in the wide receiver play for Georgia.
Yeah,
Um, oh my God. I mean, dropping wide open balls. There was a big 40 plus yard ball down the field. Um, that 86 dropped. I can't think of his name. Off top, Dylan.
Dylan Bell.
Dylan Bell.
Yeah,
Dylan Bell dropped it a big play, about 40 yards. That would have set him up. And then there was Parker Jones. He got the referee ran into him. I'm gonna be real. When the referee hit Parker Jones, he was on the green outside of his territory. Parker Jones might have been right up there on the line now. But he wasn't just all up in the box, just in the way. I thought that was a little bit BS of a call. Like I get it, you hit somebody, you got to throw the flag, but I mean, come on, man, that's a little ridiculous.
yeah,
But that did hurt him. Probably took a score or a touchdown off the scoreboard. Because I mean, they were right there. They were, I believe, that put him at like the 8 yard line or something along those lines. Uh, and then they had another one that they were driving down and they fumbled. I mean, they just were careless with the football. That wasn't the receivers, but they were just careless with the football. They couldn't catch all night. And then defensively, I know I alluded to this earlier in the Tennessee Ohio State game, but defensively, um, Georgia did not set the edge one time. It was blowing my mind that Kirby was not making that adjustment. I guess. I mean, I'm not acting like I know better than Kirby, but I know that you can't let them get outside every time and win. And it consistently happened over and over again with the quarterback, with the running back, with whoever Notre Dame wanted it to be. Riley Leonard played really, really well this game.
yeah,
The receivers played extremely well. Tight end played really good. I just no, nothing taking nothing away from Notre Dame. They were extremely prepared. They executed pretty much every moment. They gave Georgia a chance. They turned the ball over, gave Georgia a chance, and then their defense stepped up, and made plays. Man, I know it was against a backup quarterback, but like I said, it wasn't his fault that Georgia lost. He played out of his mind. But Notre Dame, man, Marcus Freeman, he's got him going. I like him. bought into him. He's actually taken Notre Dame to the next level. There's been several coaches try to do that to get them there back to competing, not just getting there, but actually winning when it gets to the big games. And he's done that twice now. So, hats off to them. I think Notre Dame's the real deal. And then that was the game I was most disappointed in. I want to get your thoughts on that game.
Yeah,
I know I kind of dogged on Georgia there for a little bit, but they really played not to their standard. And again, it wasn't because of the backup quarterback; it was their starters that didn't play well, and they just made a lot of bonehead mistakes. But again, hats off to Notre Dame; they were extremely prepared. They executed well for
yeah.
90% of the game, and they were well prepared come game time. And hats off to them; they're going to do well in the next rounds.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I knew Notre Dame was a physical team. Like I felt like this was a little bit different Notre Dame team than some of the ones like in the past, but it was still even more than I expected. Like you said with Georgia, their receivers, this has been a problem all year. Inconsistent wide receiver play. That the losses of a Lab McConkey, a Brock Bowers now going to the league, and both those guys are playing at extremely high levels as rookies. And that's just, it's hard to replace that kind of, production year in, year out. And you've seen for the first time in a while, Georgia have a significant drop off in a certain area of their football
Right.
team. And this year, that's just been, they've got talent there. It's just been very inconsistent. Drops have been a big problem this year. Like you said, some careless mistakes. I mean, really, the sequence that really resulted in our outcome. Notre Dame drives down, gets the field goal, kicks a field goal, go up 6-3 with I believe 38 seconds for half. They get the strip sack right after the kickoff on Gunnar Stockton. Excuse me, I'm trying to call him Brock Vandergriff. And Gunnar Stockton, they get the strip sack. Next play on their own or on the 13-yard line, they score. I mean, that's a 10-point swing in a few seconds. And then so they go up 13-3 instead of 6-3. And then they run the second half kickoff back. So it's 20, so it's a
Game
13
over.
point swing
Yeah.
in less than 1 minute of game time. Like that was the entire game there. The turnover obviously basically spotted them 7 for half. You give up a touchdown on special teams. And at that point in the game, Georgia just didn't have enough consistency on offense to be able to overcome, that kind of deficit being down 20-3. So, yeah, that was really the difference. Like you said, I thought Riley Leonard was really good running and throwing. I mean, that's another issue for Georgia this year. Mobile quarterbacks have had really good success. That's multiple guys this year, and obviously, mobile quarterbacks are really hard to stop for anybody.
Right.
But in this game, I thought he was played a really good game. Like you said, they were able to get outside a little bit. They were physical. They were able to match and even exceed Georgia's physicality for a lot of the game. So yeah, I mean, huge win for Notre Dame. I mean, one of the biggest wins that I can remember for them, certainly, and to beat a program of this caliber, that's one of, if not the best in college football, and just really impressive. And like you said, Marcus Freeman's got them really going well. Kind of gotten them over that hump a little bit. Obviously, not to a national championship yet, but they're in the semifinals. They're a 2-point favorite against Penn State, so they got a really good chance to at least get there and to come from where they were against Northern Illinois to where they are now is a big testament to Marcus Freeman. He's done a tremendous job this year.
Absolutely. And another thing on that game, but before we get done with it, I don't understand why Kirby, because this was a big point in the game. I believe it was right before halftime. No. I'm wrong. It was right before the 2-minute warning in the fourth quarter, not in the second quarter, in the fourth quarter. Georgia has 4th and 2. They get a penalty, false start, backs them up, so it's 4th and 7, and then Notre Dame jumps offside, so it's back to 4th and 2. So they're going to go for it. They go for it, but they throw the ball, and they no gain. I didn't understand why Kirby didn't just like he's always done bully ball. We're better than you. We're going to out physical you and run it down their throat and get 2 yards or run the ball at least to get 2 yards. I didn't know why he threw the ball. I didn't get that there. I'm sure there was a lot of Georgia fans that thought that as well, because right after that, Notre Dame went and kicked a field goal. It was pretty much over with at that point. Game in control. But yeah, I just at that point in the game, I don't know why you're throwing it, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was a big problem all night. They just were not able to run the football,
Right.
like Georgia's can typically run it. I mean that's their bread and butter. That's what they hang their hat on and what they built their program on, and it just wasn't there this game, and that's a big credit to Notre Dame for being physical
Absolutely.
up front. But yeah, it was definitely feel like the physicality of Notre Dame and maybe obviously this not being the best roster Georgia's had. I mean, still a really good team, but being not quite what they've been the last couple of years. I mean, I think I guess, got them out of their comfort zone a little bit more. But yeah, huge win for Notre Dame, and obviously Georgia will be just fine. They're going to continue to be one of the best programs in the sport. But yeah, that one definitely caught me off guard a little bit. Even with a backup quarterback, I really would have picked Georgia to win because it's like you kind of pick them until they prove you wrong,
Right.
especially against Notre Dame. Like, no disrespect, but they've came short so many times in these big spots. So
In
it's like,
ugly, ugly fashion.
yeah. So it's like, it's one of those things. Like, I'm not going to pick you until you can prove it to me, and they did that. I was super impressed.
Yeah, and I know that that's what kind of makes me question: am I going to fall for it again? But it's also Penn State, and they had the same issue as well, so it's going to be a good game. I do want to talk about Ohio State and Oregon, but we'll get to that last because I feel like that was the game. Texas, Arizona State ended up being a thriller when it had no business being a thriller. I mean, Texas absolutely had this game won, uh, and then they just left the door wide open and let Arizona State right back in. Um, Got to give hats off to Kenny Dillingham and the way his guys fought. But Texas couldn't execute when they needed it in the big moment. They couldn't get the first downs. They had some turnovers, and it was. I couldn't believe they threw it at that moment when Quinn Ewers threw his interception. I
Yeah,
couldn't believe were throwing it in that moment. Run the ball. Run
yeah,
the. You're up. Run it.
yeah. That was another thing, kind of like Georgia, Texas, a team that's obviously been not putting up huge offensive numbers this year, but that's been balanced. They just had no running game in this game. Could not run the football, which to me was surprising because I mean this Arizona State defense got 3 sacks, I think 8 quarterback hurry or 8 tackles for loss. I believe like this was a team that was not getting to the quarterback very well at all, and shut down Texas run game, got to Quinn Ewers a good bit throughout the game. So that to me was really surprising. I mean, Texas ended up, obviously having a pretty good offensive day, a decent offensive day, but yeah, that to me was a surprising. I thought Texas would be able to uh, be a little bit more physical up front, be able to kind of get that run game going and be balanced. That they just didn't have it.
Yeah, I agree, but it just blew my mind that at that moment, that's when they were throwing it. But it ended up being a fantastic finish, a thriller in overtime, and then Texas just took over. But I was extremely uh, not upset, obviously, because I'm not a Texas fan, but like caught off guard, I guess is what you'd say. But just the way that Texas let it slip away, it's like, okay, I was high on them coming into the playoffs. I thought they had a real good chance to make it all the way to the end and play for the Natty. But man, a team that can't close it out against a team that's clearly not better than you, and it comes down to the wire and you about give it away. That's when I'm like, okay, all right, is this team built for that moment? Can they get there and achieve that? So I don't know if I'm all in on Texas anymore, man. It's tough to be after you see that performance like that, but again, it was a very entertaining game, no doubt about it. Hats off to Arizona State. They played extremely well. Kenny Dillingham, he's going to coach in the game for a long time. He's a super young coach. I believe he's 34 years old, 35, something along those
Yeah.
lines. He's going to coach for a long time, and he won't be at Arizona State forever. I can promise you that. I hate to tell Arizona State fans that, but you only got him for so long, so enjoy him while you have him. What were your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I obviously, I mean, Texas in the semifinals now, but again, I still feel like a team kind of, even though they've had a great season, won a ton of games. I mean, they're one of four teams left standing, but I still feel like, especially offensively, they have not reached their ceiling. Like we haven't seen that best version of them yet, and I think when if they can get to that version in this game against Ohio State, I think they'll have as good a chance as the remaining three teams of beating them. But I mean, unless they're significantly better offensively, and they've got to be balanced to have a shot against Ohio State. I just if they're not significantly better, I don't see any way they beat Ohio State. Like I said, really good team, but I don't know if they're equipped or at least playing at that level to be able to overcome the way this Ohio State team's playing. So, not to spoil my prediction, but if Ohio State plays anywhere close to what they played the first two rounds, I don't see any of the three remaining teams beating them. Like I think Ohio State at their best is better than any team in the country. Like when they're clicking with that talent, with Will Howard playing really good football, Jeremiah Smith is just unbelievable. The main thing is their defense. I mean, their defense is elite. And a lot of talk too, not to get off on Ohio State too much, talk about Texas and Arizona State, but um, just Ohio State, all they brought back on, a lot was made about what they added in the portal and getting Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins and some of these guys. But it's the guys they retained, it's the guys they paid their own guys to come back. And that's really the nucleus of their team and why they're as good as they are. They were flashy and went out and got, some high price pieces, but the real key here was retaining all of their guys, especially on that front seven on defense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't see anybody beat them honestly. Um, but like I think Texas is one that is capable if they're playing near their peak. I just don't think we've really seen that or not seen it nearly enough. Um, I don't know in this game if they're going to be able to match up exactly the way they need to. But I really, like you said, I thought Texas was going to be able to put Arizona State away early. They were jumped out 14-3. It looked like it was going to be like some of the other playoff games and not be super competitive. And I mean, give Cam Scattaboo, Kenny Dillingham, Sam Levitt, the whole crew. I mean, they fought really hard. Their defense, like I said, was really good at getting after the quarterback. Like I said, 8 tackles for loss. Um, I mean, Scattaboo, like one of the more impressive stat lines you're going to
Oh,
see. Passing touchdown, 30. He had 39 total touches, 30 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think he had 8 catches for 99 yards. And then he had the one touchdown pass for 42 yards. So just an unbelievable performance. I mean, he won the MVP of the Cotton Bowl, and he was on the losing team. So I mean, it was just an
yeah.
unbelievable performance, and they were so close to getting it done, one play away on that 4th and 13, and you know, kind of they gambled, brought the house, and couldn't quite get home there. And Quinn Ewers, not a crazy stat line, but man, I thought he played a really good game overall. Like, I mean, it was they needed every bit of what he provided to win this game, and I thought overall he was really really good for the most part. Because um, he's been good this year, not elite, like not that elite level I think people maybe expected, but I thought he played at a really high level in this game, and
Yeah, absolutely.
we'll see what they can do against Ohio State. It should be a fun matchup though.
Yeah. And then, speaking about Ohio State, absolutely throttled Oregon. I mean, I I haven't seen a number one seed look this bad or a top team in the country look this bad since I believe it was Ohio State that beat the absolute no, it was USC that beat the absolute dog crap out of Oklahoma, like 59-14 or something. I mean, this was one of those types of games. I mean, it was 34 to what? Nothing at halftime, or 34-8 because Oregon scored a touchdown the very last second of the half or the second quarter and ended up getting a 2-point conversion. So,
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, there was no ball movement offensively for Oregon the whole entire first half. And that's all it was for Ohio State offensively. I mean, they did exactly whatever they wanted to do. They wanted to run the ball, they ran the ball. They wanted to throw the ball, they threw the ball. Over your head, they're going to do that. Jeremiah Smith had another extremely impressive performance. I mean, in 2 games, he's put up, I believe it's like 300 and something yards, 300 some odd yards, almost 400 yards, something along those lines. Went for 103 against Tennessee, and in this game, yeah, it goes for 187 and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, the dude's becoming unstoppable, and he's a freshman, a true freshman. So, the dude's going to be playing on Sundays for quite some time. And then Ibuka obviously played extremely well in this game too. But I mean, they didn't have to necessarily lean on those guys. They were just making extremely big plays with them. I mean, hit over the top twice for Jeremiah Smith, made some big plays. Ibuka had a really big play, like I was talking about, but then they ran the ball very, very well. They had a big run. Trayvon Henderson had a really big run for a touchdown. He scored 2 times on the ground. I mean, Quinshon Judkins ran the ball extremely well. He was the main guy getting carries, but I mean, he didn't get any touchdowns, but he ran the ball well. I mean, whatever they wanted to do, they did it well. And then I mean, they let their foot off the gas a little bit and just kind of, ran the clock out and contained clock in the second half. Obviously, still put up points, but it wasn't to the same magnitude as it was in the first half. They only scored 1 touchdown in the second half, and then pretty much just controlled the ball offensively, and then just dominated defensively. Didn't really allow them to move the ball. I mean, they ended up scoring twice, but they didn't really move the ball well against them. So, like you said, I mean, if Ohio State just continues to play at the level they've been playing at the last 2 weeks or the last 2 games, I don't see anybody that's going to, stand a chance with them even for a half. Just Oregon having this path to the college football final should be, I mean, felony offense. Whoever put it up, I mean, put them behind bars. This is an absolute, I mean, inside job. They were getting Oregon out of there. This is unreal that they're the number one seed and had to face the toughest teams, regardless of who it could have been. They had the toughest path to the college football playoff, no doubt about it. So, I mean, that's, I mean, an absolute just job on them. That's crazy.
What's crazy, dude, is yeah, I mean it's a great point. I mean they got absolutely hosed on that draw there. Um, I mean you think about it, they beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. Penn State had a significantly easier path to the semifinals and to the championship round than Oregon. Like
How does that make
Penn
sense?
State, I totally expected Penn State to be in at least the semifinals because I mean, like I said, no disrespect to SMU and Boise played tough and all, but like as the 6th seed, man, you couldn't have asked for an easier path. Like I mean,
Yeah,
anybody
that
could
should have
have.
been the teams that Oregon was playing, and this should be the team. And should have played the teams that Penn State played. It's crazy that that's how it worked out. It makes no sense.
It is crazy. But with with Ohio State, obviously talked about that a minute ago. The way playing at this level, and honestly, if you're Oregon, you had to be sitting there going, man, we barely beat them at home. Anytime you get a rematch against an elite team, um,
Not in your
that's
face.
just it's so tough to beat them twice. And you're like, man, your first playoff game, and you have to play arguably the best and most talented team in the entire field. Just a brutal draw, but kind of looking at it from Oregon's perspective, obviously I know they're disappointed right now, um, but a fantastic season. Big Ten champions. They went 13-1. I mean, I don't see as an Oregon fan how you couldn't be absolutely thrilled going forward the way Dan Lanning's um, the success he's had in his first 3 years. He's 35-6. Um, and the big thing to me, and the biggest factor in all this, he's 38 years old. Like, I mean, if you're Oregon, you got to be just feeling amazing about your future potentially
Yeah, he
with the
will be coaching at
resources.
Oregon for a long time.
Yeah, with the resources they have, with a young head coach, and that's what people don't take into account as much too. Is like he's like this was his first head coaching job. Like there's things he has to learn. There's things that he's going to continue to be able to improve on. And like he didn't start out in the group of five ranks as a head coach or and had to like Oregon was his first head coaching job, which is kind of rare for a lot of guys. There's certain guys that get big time jobs, their first head coaching job, but all of those guys, you've had to see them learn and grow in that role. And for him to be as good as he is already and recruiting the way he is already, the way he manages the portal and his football team always, I know it's a rough game against Ohio State, but they're always ready to play. He always has his team really motivated. So I think he's the perfect type of coach going forward. And I think the sky's the limit for them to have a lot of success there. So yeah, if I was an Oregon fan, I would, albeit a sour taste in your mouth after this game, but you got to be thrilled with your coach and the way the future is looking for you because they're going to be a really top team for the foreseeable future for sure.
Yeah, it's rare that your first job is the place that you want to retire as a coach.
Yeah,
Like he probably won't retire at Oregon because it's hard to retire as a coach anywhere because you're going to get ran out or whatever before you can retire. But to be at a place that you want to retire as your first head coaching gig in college football is extremely rare. So yeah, he's got a good gig lined up, and he'll be there as long as he keeps doing what he's doing right now. I don't see them running him out of town anytime soon. Uh, but I do want to get your thoughts on the Notre Dame Penn State game. Um, that game's going to be the first game played of the semifinals. It's going to be on Thursday night on this coming Thursday. I do believe, yeah, Thursday at 7:30, and then obviously the next night, Friday night, is going to be Ohio State and Texas. They're having both of these as standalone games, but I want to get your opinion on Notre Dame, Penn State. Uh, we've heard a little bit about Texas and Ohio State, and obviously we'll jump into that more with Texas being in the SEC. But I do want to get your initial thoughts on how this game's going to go to Thursday night.
yeah. I mean, I really like the matchup. I mean, two really physical teams. The way Notre Dame was able to play the other day against Georgia. I mean that I knew they were good, but that really the way they were able to handle them physically. I mean they're going to get a really good test with Penn State, who's really good on the defensive front. So I'm really curious to see Riley Leonard and Jeremiah Love and like some of these guys against that Penn State front seven. That's one of the key matchups to watch. Um, so, vice versa on the other side with Penn State, with Drew Aller, the stable running backs they have, elite tight end. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, I think lower scoring type of game. I think the over under is 45. I think that's probably about right with these two teams
Oh
with the
yeah.
style of football they like to play. So to me, it's kind of best on best. Like it's two pretty similar styles, I feel like, and they both kind of want to win the football game the same way. I mean, Notre Dame obviously has a lot more mobile quarterback in Riley Leonard versus Drew Aller, but yeah, to me, it's best on best. Um, some really good, players on the defensive line. Um, with like I said, with at tight end, running back. I mean, a couple, three or four elite running backs in this game. Two really solid quarterbacks. So it's going to be a really fun matchup. I don't even know how to predict it. I think I'd lean Notre Dame, just from what I saw against Georgia. But I don't really have a strong feel either way. I think the line's about right. It's a field goal game either way, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's got to be one of, if not the most even matchups of this entire playoff. So it should be a great game Thursday night.
I agree. I'm gonna be honest. I think Notre Dame's the better team. I think that they're 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 more physical for sure. I don't think they're as big, but I think they're more physical than this Penn State team, and I think that they proved that against Georgia that they can do it for 4 quarters and do it at will. So I like Notre Dame. I like them to cover. I think they win by a touchdown.
I like it. Yeah, I like I said, I would lean Notre Dame, but I feel like really even matchup. Like I said, the matchup I'm looking for the Notre Dame offense against the front seven of Notre Dame, like against Penn State. I mean, like a dual Carter, like one of the best edge rushers in the country. They're really elite up front. So I'm looking forward to Riley Leonard going up against that pass rush and a team that's good against the run. So yeah, it's going to be a really fun matchup for sure. Like I said, I think one of the more even ones we've had in this playoff. And but I'm with you. I would lean Notre Dame as well. I think we're going to get a Ohio State Notre Dame national championship with a lot of eyes on it.
100%. And then obviously Ohio State, Texas coming in. Like I said, I thought it was going to be Georgia and Texas again. And then you know, obviously Georgia kind of poos the bed when they get their chance, but Texas also just like I said earlier, they just put a bad taste in my mouth last week with how they ended that game. Should have definitely been able to put that team away. You were clearly better than them, and then you expect me to ride with you because I think because I picked you earlier, but you expect me to ride and be confident that you're going to win the national championship. It's hard for me to say that. I know that they're good enough to do it. I know they're good enough to beat Ohio State, but with the way the two have been playing, I think that Ohio State's definitely going to be able to stop Texas's offense, but I don't know that Texas is going to be able to stop Ohio State's offense. So I think the line's 5.5. Ohio State. The last I looked, I'm gonna be honest that I might eat it come Friday night and lose some money on it, but I'm probably going to take Ohio State to cover that 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with you honestly. Like we kind of highlighted, I just think the level Ohio State's playing right now. Um, I do think Texas defense, their defensive front, can probably limit them for a little bit, but I just think too many weapons and just the way they're playing right now is just going to be absolutely a handful to deal with. And I do think Texas is one of the few rosters that can match up with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Texas playing a really good game has a chance to win, has a chance to beat them. But I just I don't know if we've seen it nearly enough, and I just don't. If Texas can't run the football like they did against Arizona State, like if they can't run it at all, they're not going to win this game. Like they have to have some semblance of being balanced. I just think Ohio State is too elite on defense at all three levels. I just don't think we've seen nearly enough consistency out of Texas offense. And honestly, I just don't think Texas is going to be able to score nearly enough.
I agree.
I think Ohio State's able to limit them a pretty good bit, and I think it's a close game for a little while, but I think ultimately Ohio State pulls away a little bit. I just think they're playing too well, too much talent. I think they're refocused. They got their eyes on getting and winning the national championship because we know what they had riding on this season. Um, and Ryan Day needs this more than anybody. Like this is his year to get it done. Especially when you look at the scenario they're in with the four remaining teams. Like they're a heavy favorite compared to the other three. So yeah, I think this is their year to get it done, and I think they end up beating Texas. I would like the 5.5 as well, and I think they roll into the national championship game.
I like it. And then I got to get your opinion, man, on all the big news media outlets talking about the SEC's death. Are you behind that? Are you buying into that? What's your thoughts on it? Is the SEC dead? Are they buried and gone when it comes to football? Because, in my opinion, you look at the record of SEC versus Big Ten and all the other conferences, not only in football but in basketball and baseball and softball and everything else. The SEC mops the floor with all of them. But I digress. Yes, Michigan won it last year for the first time in 13, 14 years for the Big Ten, and then Ohio State's looking like they're going to win it this year. But the depth behind them, I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm buying into it. I got to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the SEC's so-called death has been greatly exaggerated. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say it's been a great bowl season for the SEC by any means. It definitely hasn't. Um, but um, I still think the SEC is the best conference in college football. I think that's going to continue to be the case. I don't think one bowl season changes that, good or bad, really. Um, but no, it hasn't been a great bowl season for the SEC at all. The teams that um, didn't make the playoff, two of the three wet the bed. Um, you know, Lane took it out on a pretty putrid Duke team that was 9-3. That was a little shorthanded. So, um,
Did
but
you hear Urban Meyer say that Illinois had better athletes than South Carolina? I'm like, come on, man. Come
yeah,
on. Come
like they
on.
won the game, but
Come on, dude.
still, man, yeah. I guess I'll touch on it, even though I don't want to. That debacle in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa, but man, that was absolutely embarrassing. That was a low. Honestly, that was low for this year, especially. I think the most frustrating part about it is that is multiple games you've literally just handed to the opponent. Oklahoma, you throw them, you might as well say two pick sixes. I mean, it's basically two pick sixes. You gave them 14 points. They only scored 10 offensively. In this game, I mean, they literally handed Michigan every point they got. Um, Michigan had that one good play in the red zone where they capitalized off turnover and threw that fade in the corner, and the guy caught it. It was a great play. It was well defended, made a great play. Outside, like that was really the one really good play they made. Everything else, Alabama handed them. Michigan only had 190 yards of offense. Um, I mean, Alabama held them to field goals in the red zone every other time. Um, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because the season's over now, so there's no much need of rehashing it out. But that was an absolute embarrassment. The Oklahoma Michigan games, the Vandy game defensively. But I will say this about Alabama's season, though, although it was a disappointment. I think overall, I was actually came away really surprised and pretty impressed with the defense for how young it was. And obviously, there was a couple times the Vandy game specifically, second half against Georgia, Oklahoma game at times. I mean, there were some lapses in there where it wasn't good, but I think overwhelmingly 80% of the season, I think the defense was actually pretty dang good, and the offense did them no favors, especially late in the season. Alabama turned the ball over 11 times in their first 10 games. They turned the ball over 12 times in their final three games. I mean, it was Auburn level of turnover. The way Auburn turned it over the first 3 or 4 weeks, Alabama turned it over that much the last 3 weeks of the season. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to win. You're going to lose to inferior teams when you play like that. Alabama is a better roster and a better team than Oklahoma and Michigan. Just like Auburn was better than Cal and Arkansas. Like I think Auburn should have won those games based on normal circumstances. But when you're turning the ball over 4 and 5 times, you're not going to beat anybody that's decent. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's what you saw. So, but yeah, disappointing overall, and not that the bowl game in the grand scheme of things makes a ton of difference, but man, it does leave an extra sour taste in your mouth to play the way you did and pretty much hand the football game over on a silver platter. But I digress on that. But yeah, overall, the SEC bowl season hasn't been great, but no, this is going to continue to be the best conference in college football. I think going forward, they get the most talent. Obviously, the Big Ten's a really good conference as well, and really strong. They're having a good. They had a good season, a good bowl season, and those two are going to go at it for years to come. But no, I'm not buying the SEC decline one bit as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, me either at all. But I do want to kind of dip into the portal. I don't think we've talked about the portal much the last few weeks. Obviously, we haven't recorded in a little bit, but we haven't talked
Yeah,
about the portal much when we have. I don't remember if we covered Jackson Arnold coming to Auburn or not. That was a big get for Auburn out of the portal. Um, that they definitely needed a quarterback. This is Hugh Freeze's guy. Handpicked him out of the portal, so there's no excuse for Hugh Freeze anymore to uh, to not succeed offensively. That doesn't mean win every game. That definitely means not stalling out, not completing third downs, not making big chunk plays when it's necessary, not finishing in the red zone. That's should come to an end with the talent that Auburn's accumulated offensively, and then now the quarterback that's supposed to be able to get the job done. Former number one overall recruit out of Texas, number one quarterback in the 2023 class, I believe it was. 5-star plus kid. He's got talent. Clearly, he's got talent. You don't just forget how to play ball. But Auburn's going out and they've got several pieces through the portal. Got Eric Singleton from Georgia Tech, was a big addition.
yeah,
Wide receiver, put up some insane numbers at Georgia Tech. It's definitely going to help being at Auburn this year, along with Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman and the likes of those guys. You got Ashton Daniels that also came over from Stanford. He's the quarterback. It's going to come a little closer to home, but it's also understanding that he's, not expected to be the starter. Probably going to be QB2, and then at the end of spring, potentially could be Deuce Knight, could be QB2. They're probably going to battle for the QB2 job throughout spring. Obviously, everybody's going to battle for the QB1 job, but it's pretty much Jackson Arnold. And as reported today on a three-man front by Pat Smith, some of the numbers that were thrown out about Jackson Arnold, the $3+ million is a little absurd. That there's probably more along the lines of 1.5 million, maybe to two, but that's probably a stretch. But the ones that are 2.5, 3 million plus, those are not accurate numbers of what he got. More along the lines of 1 million to 1.5 million, which is still insane for a college athlete. But yeah, so they got several guys through the portal. We got some defensive linemen from UTEP maybe, or some Texas school, I want to say, recently. I could be wrong on the school, but they've gone out and they've got the pieces that they need to fill roster spots, and then along with the talent they've gotten through recruiting, which Hugh Freeze has done a great job of that. Obviously, the last few years, doing a really good job of that through the 2025 class as well. So Auburn's looking trending up when it comes roster wise and the talent that they're going to have. Not only the talent that they're going to have on the field, but the depth of talent that they're going to have to be able to rotate guys in and to be able to compete. Make each other better at practice. Clearly, so those are some of the wrap ups on Auburn, and then Alabama. They have lost several through the portal. I have not been keeping up with the guys they have gotten through the portal, but I have seen some reports of several guys that have left. But obviously, you see everybody that leaves. You don't see everybody that commits.
yeah. No, I agree with what you said on Auburn. I think they've added some really nice pieces through the portal. I'm really curious to see Eric Singleton Jr. as one of the, one of, if not the biggest, haul of that portal class, and um, one of the best wide receivers in the portal. I think he's going to be a great complement to the guys they have in that room. Going to add a veteran presence too. Um, like you saw what Keandre Lambert Smith did for that room this year, and just having that veteran, steady type of receiver. And I think Eric Singleton, obviously, he's a really dynamic player, and I think he's gonna fit in that room really nicely. And Jackson Arnold's definitely gonna be excited to have him on his team. Um, but yeah, talking about Alabama a little bit, haven't added only 6 incoming transfers so far. One of the first additions they made was Kelby Collins uh, from Florida, originally from Gardendale here in the
Yep,
Birmingham area.
big
Um,
time recruit out of high school.
yeah, I think at times he played a little bit more interior D line for Florida. I think he's
Mm-hmm.
going to play more of that bandit position in Kane Womack's defense, kind of on the edge a little bit, kind of where LT Overton played this year.
Roaming a
Who's
little bit more.
who's returning. Yeah, so I think Kelby is going to be able to kind of contribute in that area. Um, they added Cam Dewberry, the big offensive lineman from Texas A&M. A guy like Cameron Calhoun is going to play a role in the secondary. Um, and then Isaiah Horton, really big bodied receiver, playmaker for from Miami, who is a starter for them. Played a lot of snaps. Adds a different dimension. Um, adds a lot of size to that receiver room because it's a receiver room that's fairly small overall. With guys like Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard's a decent sized receiver, but not really that big 6'4" catch radius, really athletic, making plays down the field. So I think Isaiah Horton is a really obviously a great player, but a guy that complements the other guys that they already have in that room and is going to be able to play, um, a little bit different role and a different style than some of the other guys have in that room. And then Nakai Hill Green from Colorado is going to be able to come in and contribute at linebacker as well. So I'm not even going to pronounce the tackle from Ball State. I got to learn that pronunciation. He just committed a couple days ago. He's kind of more of a upside play, a guy that's I think pretty raw still in football, but has got a ton of physical traits that you love at offensive tackle. I mean, he's listed here 6'6", 325. They said he may even be 6'7". Elite wing, like elite length with his arms at tackle. So he's a guy that probably going to be able to develop a little bit. It's probably more of an upside type of play, and they needed some depth at tackle as well. So, yeah, I like some of the additions they made, and I believe they've got about 5 or 6 scholarships still open. So I think they'll be still pretty active with a couple guys here now that the portal's closed, but especially in the spring window, I think you'll see them add a couple pieces then as well. So because there will be a few spots open. Um, a team I did want to talk about a little bit, um, and rightfully so, is our number one portal class,
Absolutely.
the LSU Tigers. I love what they've done at receiver. Um,
Yes.
adding Barry and Brown,
Yeah.
um, adding Nick Anderson from
Mhm.
Oklahoma, um, adding Destin Hill from Florida State. Um, I think Barry Brown was one of my favorite players in the portal. We've talked a lot
Yeah.
about those Kentucky receivers the last couple of years, but um, really like some of the pieces they brought in. Pretty interesting. We hadn't got to talk about it yet, but kind of an interesting future move for them bringing in Michael Van Buren from
Right.
Mississippi State, who had a
Absolutely.
really good freshman season. But give me your thoughts on some of the guys LSU's been able to add so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Offensively, like you mentioned, Barry and Brown, Destin Hill, Nick Anderson, and then they got some offensive guys, Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech, Josh Thompson from Northwestern. But really, they got some guys, to help out on the defense side of the ball, which is, where they've needed it the last few years. They got 2 edge rushers, Jack Pyburn, the former guy from Florida, and then Jamiri Butler from Nebraska. Got another guy from Florida, defensive back Jakeem Jackson. They got cornerback Manser Delane from Virginia Tech, and then another edge Patrick Payton from Florida State, and then the interior defensive lineman Sadir Mitchell from Texas. So they're really going out and getting some talent on the defense side of the ball, especially up front. The guys that are getting to the quarterback, they haven't really been able to do that at an efficient level like LSU and top SEC teams are expected to do. So they went out and got guys that are plug and play guys pretty much immediately. Then obviously you highlighted getting Van Buren. He's definitely more of a Jaden Daniels type of quarterback rather than Nussmeier is. But Nussmeier's coming back, so he's going to be able to come in, sit and learn the system, learn under Nussmeier to gather obviously all the information that he's learned and learn from him. But to fully understand the system, and then coming in, obviously the expectation is he is going to be. Obviously, no one can be Jaden Daniels again, but that's the expectation of the type of offense that they're going to have with him. And so I think that's really exciting, and it was a huge move for them to go and get him through the portal. But I'm also excited about Nussmeier coming back for another year because obviously been high on him for a while. Nussbus kind of fell off a little bit towards the end of the year, but he still played well. The LSU team as a whole wasn't great, but Nussmeier pretty much he played pretty good the whole year. Had a few weeks here and there where he wasn't great, but I think that he's going to have an outstanding year next year. I'm still obviously on the Nuss bus, excuse me. Hopped off the Gus bus several years ago, but I'm still on the Nuss bus. I know I said I was off of it a while ago, but I was just messing around. I'm going to stick around with Garrett for the whole time that he's at LSU. I think he's a damn good ball player. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what he does, obviously, with these weapons that he's gone out and gotten through the portal. So, and then obviously they recruit well always. So that they're going to have wide receiver talent there. So I'm excited to see what he does in his expected last year at LSU before he goes to the draft.
Yeah, no, I think him sticking around's huge. I mean, and like you said, I think he played well for the most part. The main thing for me, we know the Gus. Dang, I'm saying Gus Bus too. The Nuss Bus. Um, the one thing we know about him, he's got that gunslinger mentality. I mean, the Nuss Bus, we're gonna throw it around the yard. I mean,
Oh yeah. Oh
that's just
yeah.
what's gonna happen. There comes with some risk doing that, and I think that bit him a few times. I think being able to cut down on some of the turnover plays, if he can do that, yeah, I think he's poised for a big year. I mean, even though he's an experienced guy, first full year of starting, I think you see guys a lot make jumps from year one to year two starting, especially when you're a veteran guy. And I think he'll be able to do the same. He's going to have really good weapons to throw to, as usual. And yeah, if he can kind of cut down on the turnovers a little bit, just kind of harness some of that gunslinger mentality, um, he's going to be just fine. I mean, you can't dial back on it too much. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the Nuss Bus. But you got to have a certain amount. But no, I'm really excited. I think offensively they're going to be really explosive again. But yeah, love what they've done in the portal so far. They added Patrick Payton as well from Florida State off the edge, who I think is going to be big for them. So yeah, it's another good transfer class for LSU, and they've had several of those. Um, Over the last couple of years under Brian Kelly. But yeah, I mean, you looked at the SEC as a whole, um, dominating the top 5 and 10. Texas A&M. One of my favorite players in the portal, Casey Concepcion, at
Yeah.
receiver from North Carolina State. Think he's going to have a huge year next year. They added Mario Craver, local kid from around here, from Mississippi State out there. So um, they added Micah Hudson from Texas Tech. So this receiving core is going to be really, really good next year for Texas A&M. Um, they added Julian Humphrey, who played a lot of snaps at Georgia. Samuel Mpemba also played a lot of snaps. TJ Searcy from Florida. So yeah, a really solid portal class for Texas A&M, and then the Lane train's got an elite portal class. It wouldn't be Lane train if he wasn't top 3 or 4 in the portal. So, what are your thoughts on some of the other teams around the league and kind of what they've added?
I honestly don't know a whole lot of the other teams exactly of what they have added outside of the few, obviously Auburn, Alabama, and the top being LSU. I don't really know a whole lot of what Ole Miss has added. I know that they got a really good quarterback coming in next year that was sat behind Jackson Dart, and he's
Yeah,
expected to do really good. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but when he got his number called this year, he played extremely well.
yeah. Austin Simmons, the
Simmons,
lefty, kind of
yes,
reminds me of Tua Tagovailoa.
yeah,
Man,
yeah.
I'm excited to see him. Um, Yeah, I do like some of the pieces that Lane's added. Sage Ryan's a guy that's played a lot of football. Um, you know, guys, Caleb Odom's a guy, a guy with a lot of upside. Um, and then a couple guys like Luke Haas and Patrick Kudas that have played a lot of snaps at their positions. Luke Haas is a really good tight end to the SEC. Same thing with Kudus up front on the offensive line. So I think, Prince William Mamuelin, the brother of Princely, who transferred from Florida last year, he's coming in from Nebraska. So yeah, another good portal class, and obviously it's still a lot. that's on the board still, and then obviously in the spring there's going to be a lot of guys available as well. But as you would expect, the SEC has done a really good job of scooping up some of the best talent in the country, and there's been a lot of guys within the SEC move around the conference, and um, a guy that I hate's leaving the SEC that I thought may stay in is Dane Key, who's ended up transferring to Nebraska.
Hmm.
I thought
Oh
he
yeah,
may be a guy that ended LSU or somewhere like that. I would have loved to see Dane Key stay around because he's an elite player at wide receiver. But overall, I mean, the SEC's done a fantastic job and done what they normally do. I mean, the SEC accumulates the best talent in college football, and I think um, there's multiple ways to do that now. They're going to continue um, continue to be able to do that and play at elite level and have elite level talent like they've had for so long now.
absolutely.
Really, just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Hope, as I said earlier, hope everyone had a fantastic Christmas and a happy New Year. Glad to be back, recapping playoffs, catching up on portal news and talk, and really excited for these upcoming games, the semifinals this Thursday and Friday, and then the national championship game, which will be the following Monday on January 20th. So just keep it locked in here at Saturdays in the SEC. Like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. Love your feedback in the comments. If there's anything else you'd like us to cover, or anything, just any sort of feedback, we love to hear from you guys. And then you be sure to follow us too on Twitter at Saturdays_FCC. We'll catch you guys back here soon. Hope you enjoy the semifinals, and we'll see you here soon. Hope you guys enjoy your week.
Thank you guys.